Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Historic election victory for Grenada's new national party. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, March 14. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell led his new national party, the NNP, to a historic clean sweep of all the seats in Tuesday's general election. It was the second consecutive 15-seat win for the 71-year-old leader and the third time his party will form the government without a parliamentary opposition. In a telephone interview with the Grenada Broadcasting Network on Tuesday night, Mitchell immediately called on the leadership of the main opposition National Democratic Congress, the NDC, to be part of the social partners that will chart the way forward for the Tri-Island state. But in a victory rally that same night, he spoke to his constituents, and this is what he said.
No one should worry about the lack of a formal opposition. We will involve our people at all levels. That is my commitment to you here tonight and the people of Grenada, Carriacou and Petit-Martinique.
We apologize for the quality of that video insert. It was done with a mobile phone. Mitchell said he is convinced that if his administration is able to bring Grenadians together, the country would be better off. He again dismissed the notion that the clean sweep would result in the government having a free hand in running the affairs of the country, adding that he is not worried about delivering on promises.
I shed some tears already today. I am humbled. I am humbled by this experience. You have given me a trust that no other man has ever been given. No parts of the Caribbean and no parts of the world. 3 times all the seats in Parliament. I ask the Almighty God, as I did tonight, and I will do again, to give me that strength, that guidance, that wisdom, and that spiritual foundation to do the things to make you proud of me.
Leaders from around the region congratulated Dr. Mitchell on his victory. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt said the win was the NNP's administration's reward for its efforts in building investor confidence and addressing many other critical issues in the country. And Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown said he is seeking to follow Mitchell and lead his Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party in a whitewash of the opposition on the 21st of March. That is at his general election. Well, meanwhile, the NDC has been gracious in defeat. This was the third time the opposition came out of an election without any seats, following similar outcomes in 1999 and 2013. Party leader Nazim Burke wished Mitchell and the new government all the best. He said the people of Grenada, Carriacou and Petit-Martinique had spoken and his party accepted the verdict.
It was a very long and hard campaign in which we put forward our vision for Grenada, for Grenada's development and for the governance of Grenada. Ideas that we thought would find favor with the electorate. Unfortunately, this was not the case. And so all that we can say is that we accept the verdict of the people. We congratulate the Prime Minister. We take the opportunity, of course, to say to all of our members, all of our supporters, that we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the effort you've put in. This has been a very difficult campaign for us. We fought without much resources, but we relied on the will, determination and resolve of the members of our party.
Well, in the aftermath of the elections, the country is being urged to consider campaign financing legislation. The advice has come from the head of the Organization of American States Electoral Experts Mission, Nestor Mendez, who says that would ensure equity in the democratic process in future general elections. Mendez, who's the OAS Assistant Secretary General, told a news conference that there are currently no regulations in Grenada that directly address the issues of campaign financing or funding for political parties or candidates, and this results in electoral campaigns being privately funded.
Grenada has established no limits on campaign spending, and political parties are not required to disclose their finances. While stakeholders recognize that access to financial resources, or lack thereof, plays an indisputable role in any election and can render the playing field unequal, most persons with whom the mission spoke were uncertain about the origins of resources for Grenada's election and whether or to what extent this might have influenced the outcome of the elections in any way.
Now on the line to discuss the outcome of Grenada's election is political analyst Peter Wickham. Peter, this victory is no surprise to you because you had predicted earlier that the NNP would return to power, but did you expect the whitewash?
Yeah, well, no, truth be told, the poll data that we collected just before the election suggested that this is entirely possible. Of course, the client at the time decided not to release the information into the public, and I think that they were well advised to do so. So, yeah, so for all intents and purposes, this was expected. My concern, or should I say my feeling, was that there may have been a possibility that people may vote for strong opposition, and that could have changed it. But ultimately, I think the NDC made a strategic error in encouraging people to think that they were likely to win, and ultimately people voted against that as opposed to voting for strong opposition. But you know, so it is. Grenada has a new government. That's the same government, and I'm happy that Ms. Nazim Burke has conceded eloquently.
There was an increase in the number of people registered to vote in this election, and yet fewer people cast ballots when compared with the election in 2013. Now, is that an indication of political disenchantment on the part of the electorate?
No, I think that's something that has to be looked into. The feeling is that it is apathy. I tend to think not. The voter roll shrunk precipitously over the last two elections because there was a cleaning of the list. My sense is that the cleaning had ended, and as there was no cleaning of the list, then the accumulation of names is started. It's something that's a problem across the region where the lists are not clean. And I think that what we saw was more likely to be related to that than any level of disenchantment. So the voter turnout appeared to have fallen, but there was probably a 25% increase in the number of people on the rolls. Administratively, I think it's something that has to be explored. I don't feel it has anything to do with apathy.
A leader of the main opposition, National Democratic Congress, Nazim Burke, was not able to win his seat, and he lost it by 126 votes. So what should he have done differently?
Yeah, I think Nazim Burke strategically made an error. My feeling was that if the Grenadians were willing to vote for a strong opposition, Grenadians were not willing to vote for an NDC government. Grenadians were encouraged to vote for an NDC government by Mr. Nazim Burke and others, and I think that they reacted to that. Where people feel there's a possibility of that outcome and they are uncomfortable with the outcome, then they will vote against it. But my sense was that the lower bar would have been what the NDC should have appealed to, and I think that Mr. Nazim Burke would have been the greatest inheritor of that. As it stands, his personal numbers were actually improved over last election, and he came closest to actually winning his seat. So my feeling is that if the swing towards him was a little higher, he and maybe one or two of the others would have gotten through.
But would you say, some people are saying that this is probably the time for him to step aside and have someone else take over the helm of the NDC. Do you think that's necessary at this point in time? Well,
most definitely. I am hoping that this election result convinces him, you know, decent as he is, that he ought to step aside and allow the NDC. I think the NDC needs a clean house. Not only him, but there's several other of the old faces in there they need to get rid of, and I think they need to start to build a new organization that has a shine, and not only a shine, but a strategy that is different to the one that they have bringing against Dr. Mitchell for the last 20 years. I do feel that if they're able to do that, then they will impress people, and they can perhaps regain their ground in a relatively short space of time. But certainly, I think this is the end of the line for Mr. Nazim Burke, and I believe he should bow gracefully, return to private practice, and allow the NDC to start to rebuild under some new talent.
One of the things that the NDC was concerned about, or probably should I say complaining about, is the lack of financing. And in a press briefing this afternoon, that's Wednesday afternoon, the OAS spoke about the issue of campaign financing in Grenada and the lack of legislation to govern campaign financing. Do you think that if such legislation were to be put in place, or if it was already in place, that would have probably helped NDC somewhat?
I tend to think not. This is a short-sighted view of many people who don't fully understand the lay of the land in the Caribbean. NDC's problem wasn't money. I think NDC's problem was other things. And money was probably a small problem, but I don't think money is the real reason they ended up in this situation. Clearly, they were outspent. I think we need to look at the issue of campaign spending. But it's not a conversation that we can have in a 3-minute video clip. I think that we need to have, as a region, we need to have an extensive conversation about how we're going to fund elections. If there's state funding, that would be my preference. But I think that the OAS does us a disservice if they just throw this out and say, we need to have campaign finance reform. The United States has campaign finance reform, and look at the mess that they've created in relation to the funding of campaigns. So it's a long conversation, and I don't think one that is appropriate for this forum. But suffice to say, that's not the reason that the NDC lost.
Finally, Prime Minister Gaston Brown in Antigua and Barbuda is preparing for elections next week, and in congratulating Dr. Mitchell on his victory, he said he was confident of a similar whitewash in next week's poll in his country. Can he pull it off?
It's entirely possible, and I say it's entirely possible with provisos. But if he doesn't pull that off, I expect that he'll be returning to a reasonably strong government. But it is entirely possible.
Peter, thank you very much as always. The main opposition in Antigua and Barbuda, the United Progressive Labour Party, the UPP, is claiming voters are being offered cash not to vote in the upcoming general election. It says citizens have been offered cash by the ruling Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party in exchange for relinquishing their voter identification cards until after the elections. UPP legal advisor Leon Simester described the situation as blatant bribery.
This illegal practice of paying electors to give up their voter identification card is intended to ensure that these persons would be unable to vote in the upcoming election. Persons inclined to vote for the United Progressive Party have been targeted by the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party in this corrupt practice. We are satisfied that this is blatant bribery, that those actions by the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party is contrary to our election law, most specifically Section 29(2)A, B, C, and D of the Representation of the People's Amendment Act of 2011.
And over in Jamaica, Director of Elections Orette Fisher has resigned. His resignation, which comes ahead of a court ruling surrounding his tenure, will take effect at the end of the month. In a letter to staff, Fisher said there was a growing level of political interference affecting the Electoral Office of Jamaica, the EOJ. He said, and I quote, "The EOJ as it exists today is a far cry from what existed 23 years ago when I joined," end of quote. Fisher had filed a lawsuit against the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, seeking judicial review of its decision not to renew his contract, which expired at the end of October 2017. Last month, Justice Kirk Anderson reserved judgment after hearing arguments from both sides in the case, and Fisher had been allowed to remain in the post pending the outcome of the case. And still to come in Caribbean Newsline, consideration being given to extend the school term in Jamaica as teachers continue industrial action. Stay with us. There's more news after the break.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Don't miss this episode of Caribbean Passport as we take a closer look at the tourism sector. Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago are re-energizing their markets. We also get an insight from one of the most respected authorities in Caribbean tourism, the Honorable Alan Chastanet. All this and more coming up on this channel.
Consideration is being given to extending the 2017-2018 academic year in the wake of industrial action by public school teachers in Jamaica, with scores of teachers off the job since Monday to protest the government's handling of their wage claim. Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid is looking at ways to make up for lost class time.
We're not considering extension of the Easter term. We're considering some extension in the summer term. So that is something that I will announce officially in short order, but I want to put that on the table. So that is a consideration.
Teachers on Wednesday staged a third straight day of industrial action to register their dissatisfaction with government's wage increase offer of 16% over 4 years. The Trinidad and Tobago government is accusing some locally operated oil companies, including the state-owned Petrotrin, of not paying the necessary taxes and royalties. The charge was leveled by Energy Minister Franklin Can at an energy conference on Wednesday. He said it was totally unacceptable that Petrotrin and other companies, which he did not name, were allowed to owe the state billions of dollars.
Petrotrin, which produces 60% of the country's crude oil, has been withholding payment due to its financial challenges and other financial obligations. As of December 31st, 2017, the company owed the government approximately $2 billion TT dollars in taxes and royalties. With current prices averaging $60 per barrel for oil, the debt continues to accrue at a staggering $70 million TT dollars per month, without any indication by Petrotrin of any forthcoming payments.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies keeping a close eye on Zimbabwe as they prepare to do battle in the Super Sixes of the ICC World Cup qualifiers. Stay with us. Sport is next.
My thing is whether or not Flo is capable of reaching all and sundry. You know, whether or not Flo is capable of reaching the kid that, you know, is in Dominica, you know, whether or not, you know, if for example Grenada is playing Jamaica or Grenada is playing Mexico, if that match is going to be televised throughout the entire Eastern Caribbean, that would be my main concern.
Reggae and dancehall artist Cargo has made his way onto the Billboard Reggae album chart. The 15-track compilation, Walk a Mile, debuted in the number 5 position. The album was released on February 9th via the streaming hub Imprint. Walk a Mile is available on a number of major online platforms including iTunes and Amazon Music.
Man, we have Dawn and Chaz, you know, chosen soldiers, and man, you guys, man, I am so proud of you guys. And you know, I see you all being featured in Africa. Yes, sir. You know, on the top music video countdown called Big Tunes.
Praise the Lord, 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 praise the Lord. When he praise the Lord, he praise.
West Indies captain Jason Holder says his side will be keeping a close eye on host Zimbabwe as they prepare to do battle in the Super Sixes of the ICC World Cup qualifiers beginning Thursday. The two sides, along with Afghanistan, United Arab Emirates, Ireland and Scotland, have qualified for the second stage of the competition. West Indies reunite their rivalry with Zimbabwe in their second match next Monday, with memories of their last meeting during the 2016 Tri-Nation Series still fresh. Holder says Monday's match will be a must-win.
I think everybody will be up for it. You know, it's obviously a must-win game, a very important game, and I think the last time we played Zimbabwe at ODA, you know, they got the better of us to that with Lewis, you know, so we won't forget that. We will have that in the back of our minds, you know, going out there to beat them this time around. Their quality side, they're obviously playing at home, and they will definitely have the support as well. So I guess it's a few more people in the crowds helping them along, and just us 15 or 11 in particular.
The West Indies will also face Scotland in their final match on March 21st. Holder said the Windies were in good shape heading into the vital second round of the tournament and would be treating every match with equal importance.
This one box ticked, you know, we've obviously qualified with the Super Sixes, and not only qualifying but qualifying going into the Super Sixes with 4 points. I think that was crucial, you know, coming into the group stages. I think every point is crucial in this tournament, and every game is very, very important, as you can see. So yeah, we've got Zimbabwe first in the Super Sixes, and you know, we've got to play that game to win that game and start the Super Sixes as well.
We apologize for the quality of that insert. The match bores off at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Caribbean time on Thursday. Meanwhile, Cricket West Indies President Dave Cameron says there will be consequences if the team fails to qualify for next year's ICC World Cup. He made the comments on the sidelines of the launch of Scotiabank Kiddie Cricket's Chirpy Classroom Adventures academic manual at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Trinidad on Tuesday. West Indies' defeat to England last year condemned them to a 10-team qualifying tournament in order to reach the World Cup. In this report from TV6's Sergio Dufour, the CWI boss stopped short of saying what the consequences of not qualifying would be, but he remained optimistic about the team's chances going forward.
After struggling to get past the ICC World Cup qualifiers, the president of Cricket West Indies, Dave Cameron, says the competition was the ideal platform to develop players with the aim of winning the World Cup.
In going to the tournament, we've been planning on how to win the World Cup, not just qualify. So that's the reason why we took some certain players to ensure that we have the quality, and we give some players experience in order to be able to win the World Cup.
He, however, warned that continued failures can lead to consequences for underachievers.
I think we need to be very clear about what we're doing, and we are about performance, and we want to make that very clear across everything that we do, that if we don't perform, then there are consequences. I wouldn't as far as to jump to say that there will be changes, because I know we will qualify.
Cameron also didn't appear too concerned about the gap between the West Indies and the lower-ranked teams.
No, what happened was that the pitches in Zimbabwe were a little underprepared because of the amount of water. So I'm not particularly concerned about that. But to say that the gap is closing in cricket, not just about West Indies and the rest of the world, and I think that's what we need to understand.
He blamed globalization for the current state of West Indies cricket.
If you just look at the top of the cricket rankings, the globalized nations, and that tells you everything. There's financial support, there's corporate support, government and corporate, and so that is the reason why Cricket West Indies is where it's at today. We were supported by sugarcane, bananas, bauxite, and where are those industries today?
Cameron believes that the focus needs to be on promoting sport tourism.
Valiant half-centuries from Captain Stephanie Taylor and Hayley Matthews were not enough for West Indies women to claim victory against New Zealand in the first of the 5-match T20 International at Mount Mongwani on Wednesday. Matthews added 53 and Taylor remained unbeaten on 51 as the regional women reached 159 for 6 to lose by 8 runs in their runs chase. Off-spinner Lai Kasparek picked up best match figures of 3 for 35, while medium pacer took 2 wickets for for 27 runs. Earlier, the Black Caps posted 167 for 6 off 20 overs. Casey Martin top scored with 54 from 35 balls, while opening batsman Susie Bates fell just one run short of a half-century. Middle-order batsman Amy Satterthwaite perished on 36. Taking the wickets for the West Indies women were Deandra Doughton with figures of 2 for 23, while Shamil Connell, Hayley Matthews, Anisa Mohammed and Daffy Fletcher picked up 1 wicket each. 2 Jamaican boxers will be facing the biggest test of their careers this weekend. Kamal Russell will be defending his middleweight title against a very experienced Mexican opponent, while his teammate will take on the best of Guyana. TVJ's Keon Rayner tells us more.
The hard-hitting Jamaican Kamal the Hitman Russell, who won the junior NABF title in September 2017 with a TKO win over Ian Green in New York, says his preparation for the title defense has been great. Russell, who's had some good sparring sessions in the last 6 weeks in Jamaica, says the fight against 36-year-old Michi Muniz comes at the perfect time in his career.
This is the type of fight that I need. He's much experienced than me. I think he has 26 wins and about 6 losses. That's a lot of fights, right? So about over 30 something fights, right? So I only have 13. You know, so all the experience that he has, when I'm finished fighting him, it's supposed to gain some sort of experience from him, which is good. You know, we need this type of fight to grow as well. You know, it doesn't make sense if I fight somebody mediocre, somebody who, you know what I mean, doesn't have the caliber as this guy.
The 28-year-old Jamaican who won the contender title in 2015 is calling on his Jamaican fans to come out and support him.
Kid is there, mentally ready, physically ready, you know what I mean? And the whole Jamaica know that once Hitman is ready, I'm ready, you know what I mean? So, yeah, tune in on TVJ at 9. Ready to go.
Brussels.
And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Again, the major developments of this day. Grenada's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell leads his new National Party to a second straight and a third overall election clean sweep. And in sport, West Indies keeping a close eye on Zimbabwe as they prepare to do battle in the Super Sixes of the ICC World Cup qualifiers. Now that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, log on to cornernews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and do have yourselves a good night.